What's up, guys? This is Kevin Neeld with Metabolic Elite. If you're an athlete that struggles to get through training camp without an injury, here are 5 things to consider. Number 1, can you get into the positions required of the sport? There's a couple reasons why this is important. First, less range of motion at a specific joint is likely to force more or excessive range of motion at a neighboring joint. Second, muscles have less range to decelerate, so there's more stress going through a tissue in a smaller arc of motion. And lastly, the more range of motion you have, the more options the body has to execute a given skill, and therefore the less wear and tear that's going through the same tissues. Number 2, do you have strength in the required ranges? Muscle strains often happen when the muscle is at length and decelerating a movement. This is true of the adductors or the groin muscles in skating. This is true in the hamstrings in running, and even the Achilles in transitional patterns. Training the muscles to be strong at length and to create force quickly while elongating is critical. Number 3, do you have good aerobic endurance? Aerobic endurance plays a critical role even in repeat sprint sports. For example, aerobic endurance is linked to the rate you can recover after a sprint and drop off in repeat sprint efforts. It's also associated with how consistent you can be through sustained efforts, how quickly you can recover after a shift, your recovery after games, and more globally on how well you can tolerate and adapt to stress. If you neglect aerobic endurance, your movement is likely to break down sooner, which can amplify the negative impact of the 2 previous items I just mentioned. Number 4, have you accumulated enough volume? Just like you wouldn't run a mile a couple times and then go run a marathon, progressively building up the total volume of work within the sport allows for a smoother transition to the season. As a general rule, you don't want your training volume to increase by more than around 20% on a week-to-week basis. One easy way to track this is by total training time. So if week 1 at training camp requires 5 60-minute practices, for example, that's 5 hours of total work. That means the week before training camp starts, you should put in at least 4, which should follow a week where you put in just over 3, and you can keep reverse engineering each week to make sure you're ramping up to the total training camp volume progressively. Number 5, have you built in enough exposure to intensity? Injuries are more common during high-speed movements, particularly if the athlete hasn't been sufficiently exposed to these movements. Simply, if your sport requires you to sprint, your preparation needs to include sprint work, both at specific distances and progressively ramping up to the total volumes you may be exposed to at camp. All of these factors are interrelated: mobility, position-specific strength, aerobic endurance, total volume, and exposure to intensity. This means that a lack of preparation in all these areas will have a cumulative impact on your risk, whereas being well prepared in one or more of these areas could be protective. That said, the impact each of these factors will have on injury risk is specific to the athlete. So if you're an athlete that regularly suffers strains through camp, run through this list and see which area may be the biggest limiting factor for you.